I'm Davina Miller. I moved to Cumbernauld in, I think, 1970. Moved to Hornbeam Road in Hill, which I always thought was a strange name because every other street in Hill was named after a tree. But again, when we moved to Hornbeam, we moved into a brand new flat. And when we moved to Inchwood in Westfield, it was a brand new house, so we were very lucky. We were brought up in a single end. I was 4, my sister was 7 when we left it. And we went into a 2-bedroom house with an indoor bathroom.
That's the big deal, that's the clincher.
I mean, we had an outdoor toilet previously, but an indoor bathroom with an actual bath, it was the height of luxury. And I mean, now it sounds prehistoric, but when it was a shared toilet, you had squares of newspaper stuck to a nail on the, to clean yourself with. There was only Woodhead and Inchwood, and just after we moved in, they started doing Mossywood. So there was no schools, no shop, no anything. I mean, when I first started going with my husband, I was only 16, and I must have been 17 or 18 before we had a phone in the house. I used to go out to the phone box, which wasn't far from the house, and a designated time and wait for it to ring because he would phone me. You know, my folks were working class. We didn't have spare cash, so we did eventually get a phone. We had a shared line because you would pick up the phone and there would be somebody blethering, so you would put it down again until
it was that time.
Check again. It was just such a different life. The bus stop wasn't even where I stayed because the bus terminus was further down. You know, it came to a certain part of Hill and then you had to walk the rest of the way home. There weren't very many buses. But everybody at that point virtually travelled by bus because if you had there was loads of families didn't have cars. You know, I mean, my father never, ever drove. I think I only had one uncle that had a car out of about 7 uncles. Only one had a car, you know. But when I grew up, we were all in the tenements in Glasgow, and my aunts and uncles were all round about, you know, we were all in the tenement. I loved Cumbernauld because you were close enough to the city, but at the same time, you were in the country. And you still are in Cumbernauld. I mean, you don't have to go very far to look at trees.
Oh.
You know, whereas you're in the city and you'll never see a tree, you know, which it's lovely to get the fresh air. And I always think that if I'm in Glasgow and I'm coming back to Cumbernauld and I'm sitting on the bus and then all of a sudden you get the greenery and you can see cows. And if you're quite lucky, you can look out and see a deer. And I remember some years back, a lady that I was friendly with who lived in Westfield and still does. And she took a photograph because she banked it onto trees in quite a big area. And obviously she didn't have a back fence. But there was a deer eating one of her bushes in her garden. She'd take the photograph and she said, "Isn't this beautiful? That you're at home, you know, but nature's on your doorstep." It was very much so. It was very much so. I mean, it was privately owned at that point, you know, and they had all the different animals and the wolves and the deer and badgers and what have you. And it was a much different concern than it is now. It really was.
Do you remember on Pallistrigg the painting, the mural?
Yes, they're getting it redone. I've noticed that they're getting it touched up.
Yes, a lot of attention.
Yes, because it's lovely. It's something completely different.
It was the style I thought was fantastic.
Yes.
The fact that the skylight itself kind of served as the sun, it kind of lit.
Yes.
It really was. It's not a painting you can just passively view.
No, and you would have to, the longer you look at it, the different things that you'll see in it, you know. I mean, it was a place you used to take the children and you could spend several hours there, whereas now there's nothing there. And there used to be a religious thing on the rock, on the flat section. Yes. Right. Whoever got the idea in the first place to...
But it must have looked powerful sitting there.
Yes. Children have chances now that they didn't have back then, you know. I mean, when I left school at 15, I went off to work and I had my choice of jobs. Going in at 15, I was going to work in an office. But, I mean, you had a choice of jobs. Now it's so much more difficult. But then on the other hand, children have so many more choices because you didn't have the childcare that you've got nowadays. And my folks lived in Glasgow, so when I had my children, as you did then, you got to 6 months pregnant and you were out the door. You know, that was gone. So I was at home for 14 years till my son went to high school. Playgroups were run by the parents in those days because when we moved to Inchwood Road in Westfield, as I said, there was only 2 streets. And eventually they were going to build a shop and a community room. So before we even had the shop and the community room, a group of us parents started fundraising because we wanted to start a playgroup. So we fundraised for about a year before the community rooms were there and opened, you know. Yeah.
But again, out of necessity.
Yes. But again, I mean, it was only a couple of hours in the morning or afternoon. Yeah. And it was fellow parents actually who had gone and got a wee course to do a play leader. Yeah. But there was nurseries were few and far between, you know. So, but when my son went to high school, I went to Cumbernauld College to train for a year to get back into office work again. So, and as I said, by that time my 2 children were at high school, so we branched out and we eventually bought a computer, which was phenomenal. Wow. You know, yeah.